Episode of the Locked On Knicks podcast, a Jalen Brunson masterclass carries the Knicks past the Rockets late, plus the 1 4th quarter decision that won the game for the New York Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Let's get into it on a Tuesday morning. What's up, guys? I'm Gavin Schall, credentialed media member, your Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. And yes, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. You are, of course, listening to Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team at least 5 days a week. And be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day, and make us your first listen every single day. Guys, on today's show, before we get into that, I should remind you that your favorite podcast now is a newsletter, introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter, the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter to get writing from Alex and I, our fantastic team of national writers here at Locked On, and the best fantasy basketball advice in the business is from our guy, Josh Lloyd, the host of Locked On Fantasy Basketball. We also want to remind you that Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make sure every play means more and make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, guys, on today's show, I'm going to be joined by Geoff Rasmussen, the fantastic co-host of the Hot Hand Theory podcast. One of my favorite podcasts. I'm not even going to say one of my favorite Knicks podcasts, one of my favorite NBA podcasts, just one of my favorite podcasts. I love both those guys. They're two of the smartest NBA analysts out there, and really, really lucky Geoff decided to join me tonight. So what are we going to be talking about with Geoff? While Jalen Brunson's 4th quarter dominance, 17 points in the final quarter of this one, first 40 and 10 regular season game of his career. We're going to tell you about the lineup decision that changed the game for the New York Knicks. And of course, Karl-Anthony Towns. How healthy is he? What should the next steps be for the New York Knicks? We continue to debate it here on Locked On Knicks. All right, guys, as promised, I am lucky enough to be joined by the fantastic co-host of the Hot Hand Theory podcast, Geoff Rasmussen. Thank you so much for doing this, buddy. It is really late on the East Coast. You stayed up, you stuck with me, and now we can talk through a thrilling yet tense Knicks win. I knew they won this game because I was watching on delay, and my stomach was still in my throat most of the second half. Thankfully, the New York Knicks had Jalen Brunson. The Rockets didn't. He scores 17 points in the 4th quarter, 11 in the final 4 minutes, finishes with 42, 10 and 6, 14 to 27 from the field, 13 to 14 from the line. Absolutely electric finish for him.
Yeah, he was awesome. This would have been just a horrendous loss playing a team without Van Vliet and Şengün. I feel like the Knicks have been playing a lot of those games recently. I don't know if opponents have had bad injury luck overall against the Knicks, but it just feels like so often the Knicks are playing these games where it's like, if they win, great, they beat this kind of shorthanded team. And if they lose, oh gosh, the sky is falling. So it was nice of Brunson to save the Knicks from that feeling, waking up tomorrow, going into a back-to-back, coming off a loss that they definitely shouldn't have been close to, and we'll get into some reasons why. But this was a game that should have been theirs from the beginning. It wasn't, but yeah, it was nice that they pulled it out.
Yeah, I'm torn on that because the Rockets, I literally, yes, I think I agree with you, but the Rockets were also so impressive, and I think the one thing that offsets those injuries, despite the fact that obviously the Knicks had issues with no OG Anunoby, Karl-Anthony Towns clearly not at 100%. It feels like teams have injuries against the Knicks, and then their backups just play out of their mind. Like Aaron Holiday had 15 points in 17 minutes, was 3 for 7 from 3, hit, like, maybe this is a typical shot for him, but hit 2 just like crazy one-handed runners. I thought like maybe no one else on the Rockets like really played insane. Like Amen Thompson has just been doing this at this point. Cam Whitmore was pretty crazy, 18 points in 23 minutes. Obviously, he can do that, but you know, credit to Raphael Stone. They've just put together like just an exceptionally deep exceptionally athletic roster. It was an area the Knicks were really hurt this whole game, giving up 20 offensive rebounds, 17 second chance points. But I do like some of these nights I've come off games like this where they play really shorthanded teams, and I've been somewhat disgusted and just been like, oh man, just happy to get the win. Like I will give them some credit. Mike Breen had the stat. They were 0 for 8 at home when trailing coming into the fourth quarter. They outscored Houston 46-29 in the final 12 minutes. I do think there was some real mettle, and obviously what Brunson did, what Mikal did, even Cat early in the quarter, like he was playing terribly offensively, and he goes 4 for 5 in the fourth quarter for 11 points. I am impressed with that fourth quarter, even given all the caveats, though I think you would say part of the reason that fourth quarter was so impressive was because Deuce McBride was out there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if anything changed in the fourth quarter. Was there anything different about the fourth quarter? That
I preempted that. I know where the hot hand theory stands.
I was glad you brought up the offensive rebounding, because the Knicks played way bigger than the Rockets did the entire game. And for starters, I don't buy this idea that rebounding is super correlates super well with winning in the first place. I mean, what was the offensive rebounding difference against the Lakers? I think the Knicks out rebounded the Lakers 16-3 on the offensive glass against the Lakers, and the Lakers just said, we don't really care about a size disadvantage. We're just going to create as many good threes as we can. And when you adjust to that, we're going to get to the rim. And they didn't care about the rebounding disadvantage. And so I'm not saying rebounding and size are just toss them away. They mean nothing. But I don't like this idea that things like shooting, which I think shooting is the most important thing in today's game, that's seen as this, we can do it for spurts, but eventually the size difference will overwhelm them and it'll wear them out. And then when you're sacrificing shooting for size, that is seen as this thing that can just overcome anything else. When to me, it goes the other way. To me, on the net, these lineups with Deuce and Brunson that are a little bit smaller, that slide Hart to power forward. I mean, Gavin, last season, across every single lineup that played 300 or more possessions of non-garbage time, do you know what the second best lineup in the entire NBA was?
Give it to me.
It was Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride, Dante DiVincenzo at small forward, Josh Hart at power forward, and Isaiah Hartenstein at center. Now, I know that Hartenstein provides rim protection that Karl-Anthony Towns will never. And I know that without OG Anunoby, they're missing that weak side rim protection. But I would argue very, very strongly that they are making up those trade-offs in other areas when you compare those two lineups relatively. And I would argue that lineup beat opponents by 33 points per 100 possessions. 33 points across over 300 possessions of non-garbage time. We're not comparing two lineups here that are in that echelon. This lineup that we're talking about here, Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, and Karl-Anthony Towns, doesn't need to outscore opponents by 33 points per 100 possessions to be better than a lineup that has Precious Achiuwa at power forward next to Josh Hart. The spacing concerns are just always going to be there, and especially against smart coaches like Ime Udoka, who, without his two best players, knowing the way Tom Thibodeau was going to coach, came out of the game was just like, we're just going. Apologies if you don't like cursing. Screw it. We're just gonna go small out of the gate. We're gonna switch everything. They were switching everything out of the gate, and you know what? Whichever way the rebounding battle goes, we don't really care. All we care about is the overall trade-off, the overall net. And you really, really get hurt when against a coach like that, you still just stick to this. We need big guys out there. We need size. You're going to get hurt in other ways. You're not going to be able to create enough shots. And what you see in these lineups isn't the three-point percentage go down. And the three-point percentage was awful tonight. You see the three-point volume go down, because it's not that they don't make threes. It's that they can't shoot them, because there's only a number of three-point shooters on the court. And in today's game in 2025, those guys just can't create the great looks. That's why you see Brunson operating inside the arc so much of these lineups. You just have to get Deuce McBride into the starting lineup long-term, or not long-term, but as long as OG Anunoby's out, that is just always going to be this team's path to success, in my opinion.
And I think, to your point, it also is an avenue to leverage the size that you have. Like we saw against the Lakers. I mean, their ability to just relentlessly, despite well, maybe because they were playing small, double Karl-Anthony Towns, like clog up his space, like not give him a lot of room to operate. And it's because the Knicks spacing was, even with the caveat that Precious Achiuwa was out there, it was just abysmal. And I give Tom Thibodeau a little credit, because it looked like they had not planned for the concept that teams might double off of Precious in the corner, and you were going to have to figure out how to cut off that and punish teams for that. Seems like they didn't plan for that at all against the Lakers. I think they did a better job of that tonight. Like early on, you had 3 different entry passes to Cat, like a lot of them starting with Cat, Jalen pick and rolls, getting a men switched onto him, and then Cat just taking advantage. And the Knicks are just not a great entry pass team. Like Jalen missed one on like the second possession of the game where he had Amen Thompson just totally sealed. But overall, they were able to do a better job of that early in the game. And then I think they kind of went away from that. Cat at one point missed 3 straight layups, but a lot of it was because, one, the Rockets put Steven Adams in and gave him a little bit more size. But I think more importantly, they were able to throw 2 or 3 different bodies down there because you have Precious Achiuwa out there and you don't have to respect him. And when you have Deuce McBride out there, you can really play inside outside, and you can do something that is like maybe a little bit like old school early 2000s basketball, but you could have posted Cat, waited for a double, and just kicked it out and swung it around the perimeter and found some threes. That's not really how the Knicks decided to play in the fourth quarter. I think mostly just because Jalen Brunson was so hot, but it was so clear like how much more room there was out there for Jalen to operate. And they were just playing like really simple, like mismatch hunting basketball, where you had Deuce come up, set a screen for Jalen, and Jalen just over and over again was able to get into the lane. Like the first bucket in that last 4-minute stretch was like a 2-step flip shot, like immediately when Jalen Green came on him. He said, all right, 1 dribble, gather. He can't stick with me. I'm going to flip it in. Next play, turns the corner on Jalen Green, layup, 112, 111, 159 to go. Posts Amen Thompson for a lefty flip, 118, 114. 3 over Eason, 118, 114. If you have Precious Achiuwa on the floor in those situations, like Ime Udoka is sending the double every single time. So I think that won the Knicks the game, even if it wasn't, to your point, Deuce McBride specifically, like draining threes or doing something like individually brilliant on offense.
Yeah, and this is that thing you talked about the last time I was on your show, which, by the way, if I were to ever write like an NBA novel or something like that, I'm going to coin your phrase. I'm going to have to credit it to you.
I hope you do. I've never been in a book before. That would be great. Yeah.
Passive impact, which is a brilliant way of phrasing it. Deuce McBride versus Precious Achiuwa is just a battle of passive impact. And the thing about basketball is that you can just have this impact without touching the ball. We know, the basic form of passive impact is just spacing, but you have to consider where a defender is allowed to be and how he's allowed to help and what effect it has on your teammates when you're on the court versus when somebody else is on the court. And I don't know if there's a bigger gap or crater between 2 players' passive impact offensively than Precious Achiuwa off the ball and Deuce McBride off the ball. It's just so night and day, as you alluded to. And you know what? Like Jalen Brunson, yeah, he was mismatch hunting, but Jalen Green, and more importantly, Amen Thompson, they're fine defender. Like Green has been, I know Green has this reputation, but he's improved a lot. Any Rockets fans will say that. The data says that. And Amen Thompson's already one of the best wing defenders in the entire NBA. Yeah. And Brunson's just so skilled. And when he has that space to operate, he's going to get these better look 2s. He's going to be able to walk into 3s more consistently. And the last thing I want to say about this lineup stuff is it's not even about going big or going small. I actually like Precious plus Cat a lot. It just can't be with Hart on the court. And that's not saying Hart should play less either. Hart should play a lot. He was great tonight too. The way to make it so that the only time Precious is on the court as a double big with Towns and Hart is on the court is to start with Deuce and then have that rotation be Hart comes out, Precious comes in, and he's on the court with. So you can still achieve that big lineup that does have positives. I'm not saying it's like 100% negative, 0% positive. There are positives, Precious being out there with Towns. He's very switchable. He gives you another rim protector. I understand some of the strengths that it brings. But again, it's about the overall net. And I just believe so strongly that the overall net will be higher with Deuce McBride in there. And this allows you to get Precious Achiuwa out there with Karl-Anthony Towns, but when Hart needs to rest, which again, the overall net of the team, I think will be better off if you have fewer minutes of Hart plus Precious Achiuwa, because those are just 3+2 isn't a thing anymore. Like you don't see teams too frequently having two non-shooters on the court. Don't even get me started on the Hart, Achiuwa, Hukporti minutes that they tried running. Gavin, they ran those three on the court together tonight for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. They were outscored 20-4 in those 4 minutes and 51 seconds. You just can't do that. You can't allow your rotation to be in a way where those three can ever grace the court together. It's just never going to work.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think part of all of this is Karl-Anthony Towns continuing to struggle post his finger injury. What is the concern level with Cat at this point? We'll talk about that in just a sec on Locked On Knicks. Wanted to remind you guys that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are some of the relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focus more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody the green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that you love back. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improve your communication skills, and empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationships. Therapy provides tools for managing conflict in ways that strengthen your connections rather than break them down. BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists, you can do so at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. So Jeff, I was just because me and Alex have been bandying it about now for weeks and maybe 2 weeks. How long has it been since he's been hurt? I don't know. Time's not real. Anyways, we've been talking about Karl-Anthony Towns and his finger injury for a while. He is now 5 for 25 from three in I think 7 or 8 games since the injury. That translates to 20%. Did have a really good fourth quarter, as I mentioned. Like I've been impressed all season with his toughness and his ability to battle through adversity. He supplemented that with some, I think, dumb fouls born out of frustration in this one. I thought his defense picked up a little bit in the second half, but again was very hit or miss. It is just, even beyond the 3-point shooting, he does not seem like the same offensive force he was earlier in the season. And even as Mikal Bridges has started playing better, even as OG Anunoby, obviously tonight, he has started playing better. Like you're still waiting to see, and who knows if it ever happens, because it's hard to get everyone playing great at the same time when you're super reliant on 5 specific guys. But I'm still waiting to see this team with all 5 guys clicking. And I don't know if I just don't know enough about the nature of the injury to say like Cat should sit for a month. He could still get surgery on it to get the bone chip removed. He does have the wrap on it removed these last 2 games, as Mike Breen has noted. So maybe it's genuinely getting better on its own, and we just haven't seen that play out yet. But where are you at on him? Because I'm sort of the mentality, like, if sitting would help, like I would just do everything possible to ensure you get the early season version of Cat heading into the playoffs. And right now, even though I think this was a game effort by him tonight, 20 points, 9 boards, you're not quite seeing that.
Yeah. So this is a tough one for me. I am going to fall where you are. You have to do what you have to do to get him playing his best self, or as close to his best self, in the playoffs. If there is concern with the Knicks that his finger is affecting his play, he should sit. I think it is that simple. But as far as me analyzing his current play, I've always been consistent this way. If he's out there, I don't think there are any excuses, because this is an organizational decision to have him on the court. Clearly, they think he's good enough to play. So I'm just going to judge what I'm watching. And if, it comes out that he was hampered and, he misses some time, then I'll adjust my analysis and be like, oh, okay, he was playing hurt. And yeah. But until then, for now, I'm just going to look at how he's playing on the court and do my best to analyze it. As far as the 3-point shooting goes, you're exactly right. He's 5 for 25 since coming back from injury from 3. It's a pretty small sample size, and he was due for some regression, to be honest. He was so lights out hot to start the season. I mean, he was almost 45%. Look, I think Karl-Anthony Towns is one of, if not the greatest big men shooters of all time. I think that's why the Knicks traded for him. He's an unbelievable 3-point shooter. it's hard for me to believe he's a 45% 3-point shooter, even on kind of lower volume. He just shoots so many deep threes from way above the break. They're very rarely like wide open ones. So he was due for some regression. If this goes on a lot longer, I will probably share your concerns more because he is a good shooter. But in the meantime, I like how he's battling. I've got to be honest with you, Gavin. I knew that the rim protection wasn't going to be good. I've seen the data. My two thoughts on his defense are I'm more impressed than I thought I would be with like some of his non-rim protection stuff.
Yeah.
But the rim protection is so baffling to me. It's just so it's bad, but I don't get why it's bad. He's this big guy who's really athletic. Like, I don't understand why a guy will go to the basket and make him look so small. It just continues to baffle me. Like I don't understand it. But I do think that I don't think he's been a positive, but I don't think there are huge concerns on that end of the court. I think that if he's his best offensive self, he's more than making up for whatever small negative he is on defense. And he's just been excellent. So I guess the short answer is let's give him a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. And if the organization is going to come out and say, oh, well, he's fighting through something right now, I think you got to rest him a little bit, like you said, to just make sure that he's as close to 100% healthy as he can be when the playoffs start.
Yeah, the rim protection thing, it's Zach Lowe always talks about it, but it's such a mystery because he is such an extraordinary athlete around the basket on offense. I do think, and I would love to, like, maybe this is a call out if anyone is deep into this stuff, comment on YouTube, email the show. I would love to bring on a biomechanics expert because as someone who is very much a novice, and this is totally like my own BS on it. Like, I do think there's something to him being in a backpedal and like a crouch on defense that negates some of his athleticism because he is just, it's a little bit similar to Julius Randle, where like I think his intentions are better than Julius and he is mentally engaged, but he sometimes he does, but generally just does not get off the ground very quickly on defense. Like he has fantastic hands. I've been really impressed like the last week, or I'll even extend it further, like the last month or so, with his ability to switch on perimeter guys. Like obviously shut down Trae Young very famously that one possession against the Hawks, but even against the Lakers the other day, like I can't remember, he had an awful defensive game. It was one of his worst of the year, but he had one possession where I'm trying to think who he switched on to. I know he did it against Jamal Murray and held him against the Nuggets. Like he's been good in that area, gets a ton of strips. Like the rebounding is obviously elite. That's the other area where I think there might be something wrong, but again, the sample size is just a little too small. Like since the injury, 9 rebounds, 16 rebounds, 15 rebounds, 11, 10, 6, 9. And that is off the pace of, I think he was averaging 14 going into the injury. So it's a bunch of little things. It could literally just be that he's in pain every single game. I'm hoping that they are thinking long-term on that. The other big picture thing that I wanted to hit on with you was the Knicks against athleticism, because the second game against the Hawks, I guess that was the NBA Cup game, is the one that really spooked me, where I'm like, they just look against teams that have like length and athleticism to throw at Jalen Brunson, that can crash and get a lot of offensive rebounds, that can run and get out in transition. Like there have been a couple times this year where the Knicks just look a little old, a little creaky, and a little bit overwhelmed against that. And where I'm imagining a nightmare scenario come April would be like early round, they play a team like that just overwhelms them athletically. And when I go through the Eastern Conference standings, the good news for the Knicks is like I don't really think those teams are in the East. Like the Celtics have some of that, but that's obviously not the main threat. Same thing with the Cavs. The Pacers are fast, but I wouldn't say, like, especially defensively, like their athleticism overwhelms you. The Bucks, it's really just Giannis. The Heat, like not as much as in past years, even though with Ware and Bam, there's a little bit of that there. The Pistons, there is a tiny bit of that. The Magic have a little bit of that. The Hawks are obviously like the team I reference. On and on and on. So maybe this shouldn't even be a talking point, but it's just something I've noticed. And then they played teams like that since that Hawks game and held up a little bit better. And then tonight, to your point, like maybe the rebounding like isn't as significant of a factor as I think, but it still stood out to me when you're like, this is just a team full of like young, fast freaks, and they can poke and prod at the Knicks in very specific ways. Having OG would help a lot against that because he nullifies some of it. But I don't know. Is that something you've noticed too? It's just, it kind of sticks in my head.
I thought it was especially jarring in last night's game. That third quarter when the Rockets when the Knicks finally took the lead, and then just like that, the Rockets were up double digits again. That there was a stretch there where it just seemed like the Rockets were basically running the Knicks out of the gym.
Mm-hmm.
But long term, it's not something I'm super concerned about. I think I'd be more concerned about the Knicks' stamina than being able to compete with a super athletic team. Like, I don't think that a locked in 100% energized Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Deuce McBride, OG Anunoby, Towns, and Brunson. I just don't think that they're going to get run out of the gym by a worse team because that worse team has better athletes. I don't really share that concern, and that brings me to my primary reason for tonight that I would say I don't share that concern is because of Mikal Bridges. And I mean, we haven't really even said his name tonight, but what a phenomenal game by him. That was just, I mean, first of all, that ankle turn looked brutal. I can't believe that he just like shook his head.
Like he's not human.
There's something going on there because twice, I mean, the first time he fell, I don't think it was the ankle turn. Brunson, they showed the angle originally. Brunson looked down at him, and I think Brunson thought it was like a really serious injury because he like shook his head and like looked really concerned. And Bridges was just like, "Nah, I'm good." And then he turned his ankle, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that ankle turn, he's got to be out for the rest of the game now." And he just walks it off. Dude is an animal. And then the Rockets smartly tried to attack him, and he was able to stay in front on that next possession, play excellent defense. His defense at the point of attack lately has been tremendous. He still, struggles a little bit navigating screens, but whatever, you can't be perfect. His effort and his energy level defensively just remains fantastic. He's been shooting much more consistently. I like how he's balanced. I like how he's hunting threes more confidently, but still trying to get inside the arc. I think the next level for him is leveraging this space that Towns brings at center when the Knicks are fully healthy a little bit better and getting to the basket more. He really only gets to the basket on just free backdoor cuts, like when he catches the defense off guard and then transition. But I think that he should be able to create advantages a little bit better in the secondary action or attacking closeouts. When he's attacking a closeout, he often settles for those 10-footers. And look, that's been fine this season. He's been one of the best in the league at those, but you do want to see him just try to get to the rim a little bit more and collapse the paint even more, because instead of, those 10-footers, which look, he's shooting like 55% on them still, I think 50%, that's still, just 1.1 points per possession. But where you really, really start to create efficient offense is when you get to the rim and you get those layups where, like, Josh Hart this season is shooting 75% or something on at the rim.
Yeah,
I don't expect Bridges to. I don't expect Bridges to shoot 75% at the rim, but he can shoot 65%. And then, not to mention, if he's getting there more consistently, it forces the defense to collapse. And of course, Jalen Brunson or Towns or OG Anunoby shooting a wide open three because Bridges forced to collapse is going to be more valuable than Bridges mid-range. So again, the Bridges mid-range option is a nice option to have, but I hope that the next step for him as he continues to get comfortable in this system and as he continues to develop as a player within the system is to be a little bit more aggressive going to the rim, because I think he'll be even better. I think that's kind of scary for other teams is that, look, Jalen Brunson has been phenomenal, especially lately. Karl-Anthony Towns has been phenomenal, but I do think that all these guys can get better within this system. I don't think it takes like an overhaul of the system. I don't think it takes anything but like a little shooting luck and just a bit of a change in approach, and so the Knicks have been so good. The starting lineup has been fine. I think they're outscoring opponents by like 6 points per 100 possessions in non-garbage time, which is fine. Not great, but this team can get better, and they're the third seed in the East. So that's really encouraging, I'd say.
Yeah, let's take a break and talk a little bit more about how the Knicks can hit their ceiling, and then the 7-foot, 280-pound menace known as Ariel Hukporti. We'll get into that next on Locked On Knicks. But first, we want to remind you guys, Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. The app is incredibly easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. That's my Super Bowl, putting down $5 and potentially winning $200. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. 100% with you on Mikal Bridges. It's a point I've been harping on all year. I just want more time on the ball, more creation, more rim pressure. I go back to that Grizzlies game. I thought he was fantastic getting to the basket, and it is just I think some of it is like inconsistent touches on a night-to-night basis, but the Denver game had some good defensive moments, 13 points, 5 of 16. The Lakers, like, he was fine, but like it is trending the right direction where he was noticeably bad earlier in the year, and now on his quote-unquote bad nights, he's still like just okay, and given the way his defense has improved, is a positive contributor. And I thought tonight, like, maybe not the highs of the Grizzlies game or the Kings game. I'm with you. He was really good. Like, two different defensive possessions. One where he forced Jalen Green into a shot clock violation. One, like, there was a play where Green blew by him. Next play comes down. You could tell Mikal was locked in. Tracked him. Green tried to go to a fadeaway. Just blocked it right back to him. Led to a run out going the other way. Like, he just had some real moments on defense. That give and go with Josh Hart for the corner three in the second quarter was a thing of beauty. Hit another huge transition three when the Rockets rolling to cut it back to 7. And then his shot of the game was driving on Jalen Green into a fall away with, it was like 2.5 minutes left. It gave the Knicks their first lead of the fourth quarter, 111, 110. And like, it's easy to forget because we haven't gone too much into like the actual details of the game, just in terms of how it went. Like, the Rockets were up by 12 in the first half. The Knicks go on that 14-2 run early in the second quarter or third quarter, to take the lead. And then you said it, Houston just got red hot. They had 4 threes in a little over 2 minutes to get it up to 10. And then Houston, this is where, despite, like, if you want to say Tom Thibodeau botched this and the Knicks win by 12 if they start Deuce the whole game, fine, totally plausible. But it's where maybe that self-induced handicap, I give them some credit for coming back. Houston just kept making shots in the fourth quarter. Like I mentioned Holiday, like Green had like a Michael Jordan-esque circus layup at one point. Amen Thompson was, I said 25, 11, and 11. Like the Knicks athletically just do not have an answer for him without OG Anunoby on the floor. And I thought Mikal Bridges was just a substantial part of them continuing to answer. I thought, I'll let you pick who you want to talk about. Josh Hart and Deuce McBride, also big parts of that. Josh didn't score in the first 20 minutes of this game, still finishes with 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Deuce, just a couple of like really big plays down the stretch. And to further your point about like the lack of size not being an issue, the Rockets tried to post him up once in the first quarter when he came in, and he just like he held his ground against Dillon Brooks, and Dillon Brooks had to take a tough fadeaway. They didn't even look at Tari Eason, even though he's 6 inches taller than Deuce, down the stretch when Deuce was on him. And like, I think especially late in games, you can get away with that lack of size on the perimeter, especially against a team like Houston, unless they have multiple wings that are comfortable with the ball in their hands. It's not like you're going to divert your whole offense to attack a really good on-ball defender and Deuce just because you have a size advantage. So feel free to take it in a different direction, but that was just something I thought of that furthered your point from earlier in the episode.
No, yeah, I agree with everything you said, and it just shines a light on how important it is to get these rotational decisions correct, because you just can't continuously put yourself in a hole. That's not going to work. You know, the Knicks, I'm not going to say they definitely didn't get lucky. I think they earned this victory tonight, but they did get lucky that Şengün and Van Vliet were out. That's, you know, they were playing a hampered Rockets team, and look, the Knicks were out without OG Anunoby, but going forward, as long as they don't have OG Anunoby, that doesn't mean these decisions stop mattering. If anything, they become more important. And again, I mean, we covered it enough, so we don't have to talk about it more. You brought up Josh Hart. I find it fascinating how often where he is in the game seems to mirror where the team is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, I come on here, I'm supposed to be the analytical guy, I'm supposed to bring the data. There's really no data for that, And if anything, if you look at the data this year, it doesn't really support that because the Knicks have played fine when Hart's not on the court and they've been good when he's on the court, so, but I just mean emotionally, the temperament, when he's frustrated, the team seems to be frustrated. It's strange because you watch other guys who are kind of characters or can be emotionally volatile or whatever. I wouldn't put him in the Draymond Green category, for example.
Sure.
But sometimes it does feel like those guys are on an island. Like you'll watch a Warriors game and Draymond Green will be one way and it's like, dude, the Warriors are up 18. What is happening right now, But for Josh Hart on this Knicks team, it almost feels like they go as he goes. And so this game kind of mirrored that because like you said, Hart got off to a slow start. He was indecisive when the ball swung to him on the perimeter. He wasn't shooting. He wasn't as successful with his attacks. I saw him playing space kid out on defense multiple times, getting beat on back doors. That's been a shout out Prez from the Strickland. He coined that term, not me. So, but I think that's been kind of a trend this year. He's been a little bit more ball watchy on defense than ever before. And I think that this kind of started to add up for him and he was starting to get frustrated and you saw it. But then that energy turned positive and he was doing good things. And then the rest of the team started to get positive. And look, again, there's no data point for that, but I thought that really stood out tonight. Like he was integral in their turnaround, in my opinion.
I am 1,000% with you. He's the ultimate bellwether for this team. We've seen it over 2.5 years now. And I thought it was like they needed a little bit of FU tonight. And just in general, like I know I've really harped on this, but I thought that was a great stat from Breen that they were 0-8 at home when trailing in the fourth quarter. And where I'm looking at this year's group relative to last year's group, and I find myself, I don't know if this is, it's not fair because last year's group had the playoffs. They had that Sixers series to just have moments that as a fan will like forever be etched in your memory. They had that opportunity to go down as just a special team that this team hasn't had yet. And this team is newer and doesn't have that chemistry. So with all those caveats, I was trying to think like, why was I just more in love with last year's team? If that's the best term for it. And it's because we haven't always seen that fight from this year's group. Like, again, like I knew the Knicks won this game and it still felt like they were going to somehow lose. And I just read the score wrong. And I thought Josh's like he didn't have like an amazing fourth quarter statistically, but just like his toughness, his physicality, like they won that loose ball with like 5 minutes left where it got deflected out to half court. The Rockets ran it down. Cat blocked the shot. I think the Rockets got it again. And then Cat maybe ripped it away from someone, threw it up the court. And if I'm remembering correctly, that was the sequence that ended. It was Jalen pushing and Josh got the layup. And then there was another one where Josh pushed and hit Deuce in the corner for a three that cut the lead to 101-98. And even before that, he had just like this ridiculous like hang time where it just didn't come down and one on Tari Eason. And the Knicks, like he just gives you that little bit of FU, which they need against a team like the Rockets that was like young and didn't know any better and has just been slaying giants, right? They beat the Cavs. They beat the Celtics. They keep winning these games that they maybe just based on their frontline talent, they don't have any business winning because Ime Udoka is that kind of coach and he instills that belief. And the Knicks had an answer for that. And there have just been times this year where they haven't. So that's where I think this was significant. It's past midnight East Coast, so I'm going to let you go, buddy. But final thing I wanted to mention was Ariel Hukporti, just because his energy, even though, to your point, they sucked in his minutes. So if you want to bring me down on him, I 100% understand that. Had 3 fouls in 5 minutes. It was a little bit chaotic basketball, but man, I just find his energy infectious. And it's not Cat's fault. Like, this is just who he is. But like to watch a big out there who's like constantly moving, even if he's over pursuing and going the wrong way, giving up layups, like it's a joy to see a big with that kind of energy, to see him get him some real minutes with Jalen Brunson on the floor. Like the play where he blocked Steven Adams, like, and stripped him another time. That is the strongest center in the NBA. I don't know. He's just fun for me every time he comes in, and probably not this year, but I think down the road, the Knicks might have something there.
I didn't realize I was speaking to the president of the Hukporti fan club.
Yeah,
I gotta
over here
I
in
got
Phoenix.
I gotta tune into Locked On Knicks more. I apologize. I just look. I'm not gonna try to bring you down, and I certainly don't want to end on a sour note.
Yeah.
I think there is potential for Hukporti. I don't think we saw it tonight, but I do like that you were finding the positives. I will say that if Hukporti is going to play going forward, he's not being given a chance to be his best self if the minutes he plays are with Precious Achiuwa at power forward and Josh Hart at small forward. Like, it's already bad enough with Precious Achiuwa next to him at power forward. So if the Knicks are like, we're going to give this kid a chance in the short term while OG Anunoby is out for whatever reason, or we don't think Precious Achiuwa is a true backup center, because to me, what makes sense is, again, I obviously think Deuce should start, but whether Deuce starts or not, I just think it's the easiest thing in the world to make sure that even if Precious is the starting quote unquote power forward, to make sure that Precious and Cat play 100% of the center minutes. But if you just don't want to do that, I don't know why they wouldn't want to do that, but let's just say they don't want to do that, and they want Hukporti playing the minutes that Towns isn't playing at center, then you just have to make sure that Precious Achiuwa is on the court. You can have Hart out there with at power forward if you want, a bigger, small guy, small wing or whatever. But if you're going to play him, give him a chance. That's what I'm saying. And I don't think he was given much of a chance tonight. So whatever bad things or bad interpretations people want to take about my comments on his performance and how bad the Knicks played when he was on the court tonight, I actually don't think that really has anything to do with him. The only thing it has to do with him is that he can't shoot. So, but that's who he is as a player. Your coach has to know that and not pair him with two other guys who are kind of non-shooters. So I put that more on the coach. I don't see that as an indictment on Hukporti as a player or his progression. And I agree with you that, I don't know if we're in the same ballpark in terms of what his actual ceiling is, but I do think that there is something there. And, I look forward to seeing it potentially playing out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I appreciate you being kind to me as a Hukporti stan. I do think there's something to, like, flat last real note, and then we'll wrap it. I think Tibbs is a little less comfortable playing Precious at center without OG because he likes the secondary rim protection, and you don't get quite the same switchability just because you have one less guy in OG who can literally guard 1 through 5, and it's just the ultimate Swiss Army knife. That being said, I'm with you. I would play Precious at the 5. I thought Precious excelled at the 5 last year, especially with shooting around him, because he became like the most dynamic role big that Jalen Brunson has ever played with. So I want to see more of it. I think there's still stuff there to be unlocked that you can lean into. And hopefully Tom Thibodeau leans into the right lineups. And I think I could talk to you and XJ for hours and hours and hours about how this team is not fully maximized yet, how they can still get a lot better. And I feel like a kindred spirit with you guys, because I've been critiqued at times for being a little bit too negative, even when this team is winning. And I'm like, it's not because I think they suck. It's because I think they're great. And I know from listening to you two all the time, you are 100% on the same page. So if you're on that same page as well, and you want to become a smarter Knicks fan, Geoff, can you tell everyone where they could find flat out one of the best Knicks pods out there, and one of the best NBA pods out there, Hot Hand Theory?
Yeah, I'm Frank Barrett 11-9, as it says. Don't ask about the origins of the name. I get enough shit for that. Yeah, we're over at High End Theory. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. We cover the whole NBA. We break things down from, film and analytical perspective. And I think we're doing things a little bit different, the way the conversations we had some episodes do really well recently about, the Kings and the Mavericks, just, nothing really in common besides just us just talking shop, and their fans seem to really dig it. And yeah, we release Knicks content almost every week. So if you liked what I had to say, and I apologize if it was quote unquote too negative, but I agree with Gavin. To me, it's not negative. To me, this is a team that can win a championship this season. Like, I think that's super important. You don't know what's in the future. Luka freaking Doncic was just traded. Mm-hmm. There's nothing is a given in this NBA. The league could just change like that. And all of a sudden, we could have a super team like the Warriors for those 4 seasons where winning a championship is a lot harder. The league is wide open this season. And in my opinion, the Knicks have one of, if not the highest, probably not OKC or Boston's, but maybe with that on par with them, one of, if not the highest ceilings in the NBA. They just need to maximize their team. So I'm totally with Gavin. I don't see it as negativity. I see it as, we can't just be okay with, oh, it was good and they made a second round. This is the year. And hopefully there are more the years, but all we have right now is this year. So let's hope they go get it.
Great note to end on. He's Geoff. I'm Gavin. Tune in for more on both Locked On Knicks and the Hot Hand Theory podcast.